Hello everyone, back again with movie and tune recap. Today, I'm going to explain an American comedy horror film from 2026, titled Forbidden Fruits. Spoilers ahead, so watch out and take care. The movie opens in Texas, where a woman named Apple is getting ready for work, and after finishing, she drives to her workplace and parks at the mall for her shift. Moments later, a man parks next to her and behaves inappropriately while watching her. Apple signals for him to roll down his window, and when he does, she throws hot coffee on him. Apple works at Free Eden, a women's clothing store, where she and her coworkers, Fig and Cherry, are known as the Fruits, the coolest girls in the mall. They attract attention from everyone and often receive free food at the food court. Apple is the clear leader of the group and is unhappy that they recently lost a coworker, leaving a vacancy she is not eager to fill. Their new supervisor, Sharon, has been brought in, and Apple is determined to remain on top. After Apple steps away, Fig and Cherry are approached by a new girl who works at a pretzel stand in the food court. She offers them free pretzel samples, but they do not engage much with her. The three friends are glamorous saleswomen who persuade customers to spend large amounts of money at the mall. The next day, the same girl approaches Fig again, offering her pretzel samples, and Fig, being friendly, accepts, and the girl introduces herself as Pumpkin. The two begin to bond, and Pumpkin asks if there is a job opening. Fig realizes she might be a good fit and tells her to come back the next day with cinnamon pretzels, since Apple loves cinnamon. While trying on outfits, Cherry tells Apple about Pumpkin, and as she attempts to open a box, Cherry accidentally cuts her hand with a knife. The following day, Apple arrives at work and is surprised to see Pumpkin already waiting for her. Pumpkin offers her cinnamon pretzels, which Apple happily accepts. The other girls are pleased to learn her name is also Pumpkin, another fruit. Apple gives her a job application and asks her to return after closing, and Pumpkin also notices that the girls are wearing matching bracelets. After closing hours, Pumpkin meets the group, and they take her into the back room to begin one of their rituals, and it is then revealed that they are a coven. During this time, Pumpkin learns more about each of them. Cherry is sober and lost her family in a fire, Fig is applying to graduate schools, and Apple's father is deceased. They form a ritual circle in the basement of the store to enter what they call paradise. The three rules of the coven are explained. First, they must always support one another and help other women shine. Second, they banish people who bring them down, believing them to be demons. And third, they only text boys using emojis. As part of the ritual, they create a potion using juice and blood, and Apple asks Pumpkin to slap her to produce the final ingredient, tears. Once the potion is complete, they instruct Pumpkin to drink it, and she complies. Apple then places Pumpkin in a dressing room and explains that this is their form of confession, where all confessions are addressed to the iconic Marilyn Monroe. Pumpkin makes her confession, but when she finishes, she finds that the others are gone and that she has been locked inside the store overnight. Pumpkin calls her widowed mother to explain that she will not be coming home, saying she is staying over with friends. The next day, when the women return to open the store, Pumpkin reappears, now transformed, more confident, stylish, and attractive. She quickly becomes part of the group, and together they work as a team to sell merchandise and increase sales. Later, a woman suddenly begins banging her head against the front window of the Free Eden store. Confused, Pumpkin watches as the others calmly respond by calling a code deal over their radios. The incident is reported to Sharon, who reveals that this is not the first time something like this has happened. Afterward, Apple shows Pumpkin around, and the two begin to bond. Apple mentions that when she first saw Pumpkin, she felt a strong connection between them, almost like a shared bond. Noticing that Apple likes a Barbie-like doll, Pumpkin buys one for her, which brings them even closer. This growing closeness makes Cherry somewhat jealous, as she closely seeks Apple's approval and values her opinion above all else. Unbeknownst to Apple, the Barbie-like doll Pumpkin bought for her contains a hidden camera, which Pumpkin can use to record and replay events. To celebrate Pumpkin's first month with the group, Apple gifts her a matching friendship bracelet like the ones the others wear, each decorated with charms representing different fruits. They celebrate together, growing closer as a group. Over time, they continue returning to paradise, and as the months pass, Pumpkin learns more about each of them. She discovers that Apple was the one who helped Cherry become sober, and that Fig is applying to graduate school while secretly seeing a man named Norman. During one of her confessions to Marilyn Monroe, Fig expresses her fear of ending up like her mother, who loved someone deeply but was mistreated because she lacked a degree. It is also revealed that Apple tightly controls Cherry's life, even scheduling her activities. Cherry is only permitted to have an affair on Wednesdays, a rule she frequently breaks by secretly seeing men who work in the mall while claiming she is attending therapy. Pumpkin follows her one day and catches her in the act. Cherry begs Pumpkin not to tell Apple, and Pumpkin agrees to keep her secret. When Pumpkin asks why this is such a concern, Cherry explains that Apple had an abusive father who abandoned her and her mother. Later, Pumpkin discovers that Fig has developed strong feelings for Norman and has been secretly meeting him. During one of their dates, Norman asks Fig to be his girlfriend, and she happily agrees, until she realizes Pumpkin has followed them after finding her ringing phone. In private, Fig pleads with Pumpkin not to reveal the relationship, fearing the consequences. Fig then tells Pumpkin about Pickle, a former member of the group. Pickle had once been fully devoted to the Coven, but things changed when she began dating someone and started missing rituals and visits to paradise. In response, Apple led the group in casting a hex against her. Soon after, Pickle's boyfriend fell into a coma under unclear circumstances. Following this, Pickle suffered a breakdown and now wanders the mall, repeatedly banging her head against the windows, and Sharon was brought in as a supervisor because of the situation. Fearing that something similar could happen to Norman, Fig asks Pumpkin to keep her secret, and Pumpkin agrees. One evening after closing, Pumpkin is in the mall bathroom when she notices a pair of feet standing directly outside the stall door. Startled, she exits and spots a woman who quickly runs away. Pumpkin gives chase but briefly loses her. She eventually finds the woman, who turns out to be Pickle, and with an ominous warning, Pickle urges Pumpkin to escape the Coven and cautions her that Apple is dangerous. Meanwhile, Pumpkin begins having private conversations with Sharon, and this makes Apple increasingly paranoid and suspicious when she finds out. Convinced that Sharon is plotting against them, Apple calls for an emergency gathering in paradise. Believing there is a snake among them, she leads the group in casting the same hex they once used on Pickle, this time targeting Sharon. The next day, while Pumpkin and Fig are at the food court, Pickle suddenly falls from multiple floors of the mall and dies. The girls are horrified and devastated, but Apple shows little reaction, and the others begin to question whether their hex may have caused it. Overcome with guilt and distress, Cherry retreats to the dressing room for confession, where she breaks down and begins drinking again. Disillusioned, Cherry confides that Apple lives in her car and claims that she poisoned her own father, saying that Apple tends to hurt the people she loves most. Pumpkin listens to this through her phone using the hidden camera inside the doll she gave Apple. Cherry also admits that she no longer feels truly alive except when she is with Apple, believing she could be her antidote. After her confession, Cherry attempts to harm herself with a lighter but is unable to go through with it. It is later revealed that Apple has been getting into trouble and is called into Sharon's office. Afterwards, Pumpkin sees Apple in the back of her car, and that night, Apple tries calling her mother, but her calls go unanswered. The next day, Apple brings cupcakes to work and is distressed to see Shirley Temple, Cherry's cat, which Cherry had brought despite Apple's earlier warning. Apple presents the cupcakes to the group and announces an emergency paradise meeting, insisting that everyone attend despite a tornado warning. Minutes later, Pumpkin becomes ill and vomits after eating her cupcake, leading the others to suspect that Apple may have poisoned it. Apple grows irritated whenever Fig tries to bring up Pickle's death and firmly denies putting anything in Pumpkin's cupcake. When Cherry speaks rudely about Pumpkin, Apple becomes visibly upset. During a private call with Norman, Fig is excited to learn that she has been accepted into graduate school, and Fig warns him not to come to the mall that night. During the ritual, Apple tells the group that Marilyn Monroe died after being deceived by her boyfriend and insists they must not let her death be in vain. She demands a sacrifice and proposes using Cherry's cat, but Cherry refuses, leading to an argument within the group. Fig, who is still devastated by Pickle's death, announces that she is leaving and refuses to participate in the sacrifice. She also reveals that her real name is Emily, and just then, Norman arrives, concerned about Fig, and Apple realizes that the others have turned against her. She grabs a meat cleaver, but Cherry takes it from her, and believing Norman may be a threat, Cherry suddenly drives the cleaver into his face, shocking everyone. Fig screams and rushes him away. Cherry claims it was an accident and leaves the room, followed by Pumpkin, who blames Apple for everything before leaving as well. Apple is left frustrated by the incident and later discovers that the doll Pumpkin had given her earlier contains a hidden camera. She confronts Pumpkin, but Pumpkin is unwilling to talk and says she wants to leave to meet her mother. However, due to the earlier tornado warning, all the mall's doors have been automatically locked, making it impossible for her to exit. Meanwhile, Norman ends his relationship with Fig, and Fig returns inside when Pumpkin calls for help, despite having earlier told her to contact emergency services. At the same time, Cherry and Apple engage in a heated argument about Apple's influence over her. Cherry accuses Apple of killing her father and threatens to expose her secret. In response, Apple suddenly calms down and attempts to kiss Cherry, but Cherry immediately rejects her. Just then, Apple strikes Cherry with a mannequin arm and tries to lock her in, but Cherry manages to fight back and escape, with Apple chasing after her. The chase leads into the main area of the mall, and as Cherry flees from Apple, her heel becomes caught in a moving escalator, causing her to be pulled downward. Fig arrives and attempts to help her, and Cherry initially manages to free herself. However, her hair becomes entangled in the escalator, trapping her again. Fig instructs Pumpkin to find the breaker to stop the machine, and when Fig threatens Apple, she briefly moves to assist. However, just as Cherry is on the verge of being pulled in further, Apple removes the friendship bracelet from her wrist, and Cherry is fatally pulled apart by the escalator. Pumpkin returns and is left in shock by Cherry's death, and as Fig attempts to flee, she slips on the blood. The situation worsens when the storm causes the mall's skylight to shatter, sending falling glass downward, which fatally killing Fig and leaves Pumpkin screaming in horror. Apple remains unmoved by the deaths, and she takes Pumpkin to the mall fountain to wash the blood off. While Apple is in the water, Pumpkin secretly brings the camera hidden in the doll to record them. Pumpkin finally asks Apple if she knows who she is, and Apple reveals that she has been expecting the question, implying she already knows. Pumpkin confirms that they share the same father and explains that she came to free Eden to obtain a confession from Apple. She insists that their father was a good man, which angers Apple. Apple counters that he was a man who lived a double life, marrying 2 women, raising 2 families, and ultimately abandoning Apple and her mother to struggle on their own. Apple then accuses Pumpkin of being the snake, revealing that Pumpkin had faked her illness after eating the cupcake earlier. The confrontation escalates into a physical fight, with Apple driven by intense rage. Apple screams at Pumpkin for defending their father, demanding to know why everyone, including Pumpkin and their mother, hates her despite believing she saved them. Overcome with emotion, she cries out that she is tired of being abandoned for eliminating a monster, and in a fit of rage, she strangles Pumpkin and leaves her body floating in the fountain. Feeling as though she has been reborn and cleansed, Apple asks Marilyn for forgiveness. Days later, at a different mall, a group of women gather with pumpkin spice lattes as they prepare to open their nearly completed Free Eden store. Now dirty and disheveled, Apple approaches the group's leader and returns the cake pop she had previously taken. Impressed, the leader asks if Apple is looking for a job, and the film ends with Apple smiling. In a mid-credit scene, Sharon is revealed to be an undercover homicide investigator who has been tracking Apple in connection with multiple poisonings, including those of her father and Pickle's boyfriend. She is shocked to discover that Apple has also killed her own sister, but realizes that the doll Pumpkin left behind may have recorded everything, providing the evidence she needs. Okay guys, that's all the recap about Forbidden Fruits from 2026. Thanks for watching, see you again in the next video.